briefly go through an agenda. So we'll do introductions. Those on the computer, just go ahead and type your name and your company and email address. I've got Jaren here helping me with that information. We'll go over the RFP schedule, the project procurement website, a brief overview of the scope of work or the project, then the RFP task, scope of work, and as well as the schedule as the district has kind of put it together. It may be reasonable, it may not be reasonable, but that's what you guys will tell us in your proposals. And then we'll go through any questions. If you have any questions online, please submit those through the chat or unmute yourself and ask those. I prefer that you raise your hand with the icon up at the top of your bar with the raise hand button, just so that Jaren can know that you want to speak, and we'll take your question. So we'll just get right into it. I'm Scott Rogers. I'm the engineering manager here at Palmdale Water District. I will be the primary point of contact for the project. And I will let Jaren introduce himself.
My name is Jaren Holiday. I'm the assistant engineer here at Palmdale Water District.
Also in the room, we have
Brian Trussell with Trussell Technologies.
Brian Trussell with Trussell Technologies. Brian Dietrich with Woodward and Kern. And Anand Brian Zakir from Stantec. So those are the folks that are in the room. Since we went through that, does anybody want to introduce themselves online, or we can just keep moving forward? Any raised hands? Okay. I will give you guys a list of all the people that were attending virtually so that you have that list. Here's the RFP schedule. Oops. Go back. The pre-proposal meeting obviously is today. Thank you guys for attending, both virtually and in person. The in-person people will get bonus points for coming. No, just kidding. The question submission deadline is the 30th December at 3 p.m. But if you have a question and your questions are ready, go ahead and submit those and we'll answer those ahead of schedule. And we prefer you to ask those questions through the procurement website. And I'll show you kind of a brief screenshot of that. Like I mentioned, we'll respond to all the questions when they come in, just so they're already answered so you can prepare your proposals. But the deadline for responding is January 4th at 11 a.m. And the most critical thing, proposal submission deadlines, January 26th at 1 p.m. You'll submit those or upload those through the procurement website, and we will start reviewing those once we receive them. The interviews are scheduled for February 9th at 9 a.m. That will be the first interview, and then every subsequent interview will be after that. We'll probably give about a half an hour space between each interview. So that's how we'll do that. And I'll phone the teams once we've made the recommendation for interview after we've reviewed the proposals as soon as possible so your teams can start preparing for interviews. The consultant selection date is February 28th, and that's at the board meeting, which is at 6 p.m. So we'll let everybody know what the outcome of that was through the procurement website officially. Yeah, so that's the RFP schedule. As I mentioned, here's the procurement website. If you've downloaded the RFP already, you've already seen this. But I just wanted to point out a few things just so people are familiar with it. The questions can be submitted there at the tab on the web page that says question and answers. If we get a lot of questions, we'll issue an addendum to the RFP as necessary, if there's more clarifications that make sense to all the proposers. It's really easy to upload your documents. Just click on the draft response and it'll take you through the questionnaire, making sure that you've answered everything and uploaded the correct documents. And there's the link to the project itself if you haven't been on the e-procurement website. So I'm going to just go through an overview. As most of you know, the district did a feasibility report. Stantec did that for us. They recommended advanced purification facility, and then looked at also whether we're going to do groundwater augmentation or surface water augmentation. That report has a lot of good information in it. The district is kind of looking at various sites that Stantec didn't propose. So there's some options in there, and I can talk about that when we go through the scope. So right now the district's at this program management RFP stage. We're really looking for a program manager that will act on behalf of the district, representing kind of the technical expertise side of it. Obviously, I'll be involved in it, but that's the primary purpose of hiring the program manager. And I can talk about that a little bit more. Here's the goals that we set out for the project. And I would say these, are primarily focused on the RFP and the project itself. So the district has an agreement with the County of Los Angeles Sanitation District, District 20, 5,325 acre feet. We're also in discussions with the city of Palmdale to get an additional 2,000 acre feet. So make point of that in your proposals that, there's an additional 2,000 that may be looked at the capacity of the facility itself. That's one thing I didn't include in the RFP. So make point of that. Grant funding is really, as usual, every agency is really super important. We're hoping that we can get the project moving forward so we can get into the implementation stage and get some dollars for the project. So that's important. Also is, the schedule itself, since we want to get this project implemented, making sure that the program manager is managing dual teams if they're looking at the groundwater modeling, as well as, next steps with groundwater modeling, as well as the basis of design report / feasibility report for the Bureau of Reclamation. The second part the next one is the public buy-in. We want to do a lot of outreach. This project will probably be one of the largest projects in the Antelope Valley, and it'll get a lot of press. I foresee that in the future, based on all the other projects for water augmentation, the public will get excited about it, and we'll probably start planning the expansion of the plant before the current plant is built completely. So that is another goal. Regulatory approvals, obviously, we want to make sure that the regulators are involved early on in the project, and they understand the project, and that we're not looking at technology that needs further study and analysis. I'd like to, best available technology. Don't recreate the wheel, because, we're a small agency and we don't need to be doing any research studies. So that's important as well. So, and then the final one is expandability to full scale. And what I mean by that is, approximately the 5,325 acre feet may be completely doubled. So that could be a plant expansion, as mentioned. So we want to be able to expand the plant to the full capacity of recycled water that we can pull from the sanitation district. Critical issues. These are the ones that I see as critical issues. The groundwater modeling. Do we have the recharge capacity? Do we have the travel time? Santec briefly kind of did a very high level look at it and recommended, make sure we're trying to hit that minimum 3-month requirement that the state was always looking for. Again, regulatory approvals. Brine management is another one. We're a landlocked agency, so we don't have access to a brine line. We don't have access to the ocean. So brine management will be important. And again, public outreach. I think those are very key factors and critical issues for the project itself. Obviously, if I'm missing something, make sure you note it in your proposal, because that's basically what I've seen. So I'm going to briefly go through all this. I don't really want to list all of this. If you've seen the RFP, you've seen the scope of work. It's very extensive, very detailed. If there's specific questions that you have on it, we can talk about those on after when we start taking questions. I think some of the points that I'd like to make just as we go through it, I think the funding application, obviously, we have a tertiary water purchase agreement with the sanitation district. So we'd like to be able to look at since we're paying for the tertiary water, we want to make sure that we're getting the quality that we need at the advanced treatment plant. So we'd like to make sure that we're holding them to the fire since they're a separate agency from us. So that's something that is important. The groundwater modeling, obviously, the BRR feasibility report, and then public outreach. The demonstration facility is important as well. So there's a lot of critical factors, and a lot of those items in the schedule, as you'll see, are concurrent. So that's why I'm really encouraging the program manager to really make sure that there's separation between the program manager and the design team. And that line, needs to be clear and cut, because the design team's going to be submitting to the program manager to review their documents and approve them as the technical representative of the district. So that's important. If it wasn't clear in the RFP, the district is looking at creating bridging documents for progressive design build. So let me take it to about the 15 to 20% level, enough for the design team to still utilize your work and take it to the next steps. So that's another important thing. That's kind of a brief overview of the scope of work. One thing that I'd like to mention also in the scope of work, we'd like you to follow the scope of work as it is and create your fee estimate. And then if you have any value add or things in the scope that you think we don't really need to do, then deduct those at the bottom of your fee estimate, so that we can really look at what the program manager is recommending. So that's something that pay attention. And that's why I created that spreadsheet for you guys to use as a fee estimate. Also in the fee estimate, you'll notice that there's a multiplier, and that's just a project multiplier. So we just like you to denote what your multiplier is on the project, because it's such a long drawn out process. You're going to have some utilization of staff. So we'd like to be able to get some value from that as well. So just make note of that when you submit your fee estimate. Here's a brief overview of the project. We're looking at the phase 1 to take about 4 years. So if that's not feasible to you guys, that's basically the scope as it's written. Phase 2 will be the actual design build team. So phase 2, we may part ways with the program manager, or we may just issue an addendum depending on the performance of the program manager. I don't know if I can go through this schedule, but I mean, it's in the RFP. If you have any questions on it, I'm happy to answer those. Obviously, we've asked you to provide a schedule as well, because maybe what I've come up with is not realistic. But the overall overarching goal is to get the project closer to implementation in a fast manner. So and that's all I have. I'm happy to take questions both online or those folks that are in person here at the boardroom. I will. Jaren, do we have any questions? Where's her question at? Is it at the bottom? It hasn't come across yet.
I think she raised her hand.
Oh, then I'll have to unmute her. Can you go ahead and unmute yourself, Tama?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I have a question on what the scope, the limit of scope of services for the economic analysis on the impact of the project on the local economy. What is the limit of scope due to also having NHA and RDN doing work for you? I'm just trying to get an idea what the limits of the scope of work is for that task.
Well, yeah, I think we need to, what I'm looking for is an economist to come in and say, this will be the local impact to the economy. RDN and the other firm that you mentioned is not involved in that, except for on the financial side, because we have a financial representative that handles our bonding, and then RDN handles our rate study or rate case. So we just want the program manager to be able to assist with the project's funding from that standpoint, providing the total costs, providing input into the rate study. And then from a financial side, just providing those costs that the financial advisor can bring to a bond crediting agency, or when we issue bonds, or if we go to WIFA, that there's some assistance there, basically.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Demonstration facility design, are you expecting?
Zakir, if you couldn't hear that, asked, are we expecting a full design for the demonstration facility? And the answer is yes.
Is there a preferred day that the district wants separation?
Well, as the sole decision maker, I think you need to be very clear in your proposal, how you're going to achieve that. And the district will either say, yeah, it's clearly demonstrating that there's clear separation. If we don't feel there's not clear separation, then we'll go, yeah, we'll just say that this doesn't meet our requirements. So there's no specific criteria other than we want to see proposers identify how they're going to keep that separate, whether that's two separate teams, whether that's in-house, and I don't know how you guys are going to work that out, but yeah. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, so with the separation between the program management and the design team, what tasks do you deem as part of the design portion of the project?
I think, as far as the design portion of it would be obviously the groundwater modeling, the demonstration facility, and then the bridging documents. To me, that's very clear. I can see where the program manager could do all obviously the program management tasks are definite. The basis of design or the feasibility report for the BOR, I could see that the program manager can do that in-house. outreach, you're gonna have to, if you're gonna do that in-house and as an engineering firm, you better have some good public affairs people that are got a lot of experience if you're gonna do that in-house. So, I guess, the way I'd answer that is, obviously want that separation, but we also want the best people on the team to, provide us the best product at the end of the day. With the obvious goal is that, I want to get this implemented before all the LA projects get implemented. So that's that's my personal goal. And like I said, as far as public outreach, this is going to be a big deal project, and I foresee that, as we get closer to doing the implementation, that the public, not only from Palmdale, but the Antelope Valley will be drawn to this project and go, it'll be in the news a lot from a local standpoint. So. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. The question from Brian was, what task items do you see the design team doing versus the program manager? And that's what I just answered. Sorry if you couldn't hear those questions. I appreciate you asking that question. Any other questions? Go ahead, Eric.
So with regard to the technical advisory committee, are you wanting that as separate from the program management and separate from the design? Or what's your vision for the technical advisory committee?
Yeah, they're gonna have to be outside of the design firm and the program manager. We want them to be completely independent. And I think that's one of the requirements for one of the funding options that we listed, if I recall correctly, as well as a regulator standpoint for the advanced treatment. One thing that I will, like I mentioned, the meeting is being recorded. We will post that to the procurement website. So if you want to circle back and go through those, you can. We appreciate everybody attending. If there's no more questions, I'll let you guys get back to your day, and we look forward to seeing your proposals, and we look forward to starting this project. All right, seeing no questions, I will go ahead and close out the meeting, and I appreciate everybody's attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
All right. Thank you, Scott.